Greetings, readers. I am Liz Donatelli. Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance, the #1 romance novel talk show on YouTube. Author CALLIE Chase joins me to discuss her epic fantasy vampire romance, Dishonor Among Thieves. And CALLIE plays This Title Needs a Story. Enjoy and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Welcome to Reader Seeks Romance, CALLIE.
Hi, Liz. It's so good to see you again. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure. You know what? I'm going to dig right in.
So the nutshell of it is there is a vampire who has been almost killed by a rival, and that's before the story opens. So he's free now, but he's got his sights set on revenge, of course. And so he goes to sort of a neighboring shire from the one he lives in and tries to recruit a buddy to help him basically take care of his nemesis. And while he's there, a thief, so that's our female main character, she has just recently escaped from this foundling home, which is like an orphanage, basically. She's escaped from there, and she has a sister who's gone missing. So she needs money and a job fast.
Right.
And she's been raised as a thief. So they happen to be in the same pub, a thief and a vampire walk into a bar. And so that's like the kickoff of the story is she overhears that he has a job and she wants it. So there you go.
I have to mention that the story opens in Fishhead End. This is this crummy little fishy town, okay? Yes. And you describe the smells and the horror of this fish soup, this fish head soup, so well. I looked beyond the fish, and it seemed like the choice was purposely done because the scene is so well set. I was instantly in the story, in the scene with Brex. Was this taken from your writer's toolbox, this sensory imagery? Was that done to really get you in that time and space?
Yes, definitely. Because one of the reasons why I wanted to write fantasy romance, and especially this story, is that sort of almost video game immersive feeling where you're you just look around and you feel like you're in that world. And so, yeah, I really wanted to kickstart it where you're I feel like I'm in this place with these people. So Thank you. I'm glad you get to feel that. No disrespect to fish,
I was repulsed and totally dragged in. And then I was wondering, I wonder if CALLIE had some kind of bad experience with sushi or something recently, and she's processing this through the story. I also have to ask, because it's so smoothly written, the pickpocket skills of Brex, did you actually practice the art of thievery? Because it was written almost like, okay, CALLIE has another life that we're not aware of. It was written so expertly. So was there kind of any practice on your part?
Okay, yes, but please do not report me to the authorities.
Okay.
In a sense, because when I have survived the pandemic playing video games, and that's really what sort of helps me sort of stay in the story. You've always got this quest happening and there's all these interesting characters. And so I love to play a thief or someone who sneaks around, because I'm not the best to just run up and smash and fight. I like to be at a distance with my little arrow, but don't get me started on archery. So the thievery part, the rogue aspect, yes, I have been stealing things from people for years, but not in real life. Not in real life.
So you're a big gamer then?
I mean, let's not say big. I would like to think that I'm a big gamer, but I love playing a few certain games so much, and I'm truly terrible at most of them, but it's still fun.
So the role-playing games then, where you get to go on journeys and missions and adventures. Okay, cool. Is there one in particular that you really enjoy, not only the gameplay, but the storytelling?
Yes, yes. Baldur's Gate 3. I've been playing that, yeah, for definitely 2 years. I think it just came out, was rolled out in early access about 2 years
Okay.
ago now.
Oh, great. Oh, I love that. I love that. So in your bio, you credit strong coffee and all things chocolate for
Mhm.
helping to bring your ideas to life. So, which coffee beverage and chocolatey treat were you enjoying when the idea for Dishonor Among Thieves popped into your mind?
Oh, I'm absolutely sure I was drinking this coffee blend called the Reanimator, which also plays into my love for zombies, but it's really strong. It's delicious. So definitely I was just drinking Reanimator coffee with probably non-dairy creamer in it. And then brownies. I don't want to admit how many brownies I've eaten over the last 2 years of the pandemic.
Really?
Like,
Oh, I am
yeah.
a brownie fan too. I will immediately lose control if I have a brownie. That's why I try not to have them. Do you bake your own brownies?
Yes, but I found a mix that I like. So I do make them from a mix more often than not, more often than not. But
Okay.
my grandma, Liz, I have to tell you, my grandma had this recipe that mixes together like different things. It's almost like a kitchen sink brownie.
Oh.
They're insane. It is caramel and chocolate chips. And it's pretty much just, I can't believe, I survived my childhood with how many of those I ate.
Wow. Have you ever tried the Ghirardelli mix, the brownie mix? Holy.
Those those are the ones. Those are the ones I've been
Oh, those are
making.
the ones.
Yummy.
They
Yep,
are, it's almost like, oh, please.
I know.
It's almost spreadable. They're so moist. You can almost just spread them on things. Actually, that's a good idea.
Spread your brownie on a cookie.
Yeah. Or spread that brownie on another brownie. I don't know. Imagine the stories that would come from that.
A little more action in there.
Let me paint the picture. So you're drinking Reanimator, you're eating brownie, and then what pops into your head first? Neo, Rex, magical creatures. What is it that comes to you first?
Well, specifically with Dishonor, and we might have talked about this a few years ago, but I had written or I was planning to write sort of a fantasy heist book, and
Mm,
I did. I finished that one months ago, but
right.
it definitely needed editing, and I wanted to write sort of a prequel, so I kind of established the lore because that's one of the things that kind of comes out in
Yeah,
Dishonor is the vampire lore
right.
in my series is not the same as sort of the traditional stuff you've seen. Hopefully, it's a good, interesting spin. But yeah, so I'm hopped up on coffee. I got tons of sugar with this brownie, and really just thinking about these vampires and their adventures and different parts of the universe because I've created sort of a big world that hopefully different characters will come from different parts of the world. So, like the experience that Neo has, where
Right.
he is, they're very much like suppressed and hidden and forgotten, but not everyone knows that they do exist, but they're kind of in denial that they're real. And so
Right.
his experience is much more sort of punishing and tortured, although it's not dark. I wouldn't consider it dark romance.
Right. Right. No.
Yeah, but yeah, trying to give him some angsty fun while I'm yeah highly caffeinated and
Mhm.
sugar.
So while writing Dishonor Among Thieves, did your characters, Neo and Brex, demand a slow burn enemies to lovers romance, or did you tell them, listen, this is the romance journey you need to go on?
No, I think the characters are demanding a lot more heat, and I'm like, we're dialing it down a notch, people. We're taking
Oh, interesting. Like off the wall heat? Were they demanding? And you didn't feel it would take away then from the journey, from the story? Well, why?
I did because well, and honestly, I was just very mindful of length because I think the
Oh,
final, I mean, the final version is like almost 90,000 words. So I'm like, oh my gosh, if I give them all this extra time together, and I was probably pretty ambitious with this book. Like there are two villains, and so there's like multiple adventures happening, which I probably could have toned it down to one and given them more time to be alone. So we'll see. I think there might be more heat in future books, but this one I was like, you can have some pretty angsty moments, and there's definitely spice, but it's kind of closed door, or we kind of just fade to black at some point. So
I enjoy a good slow burn. There is an art to it. So, how slow would you say the slow burn is? If you could describe it in like 3 words, what kind of a slow burn are we talking about here?
Not that slow.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's good.
They're feeling the attraction right away. They're feeling
Yeah.
it, but then it's like they've got the,
Yeah.
dueling and opposing goals, and so they're very opposed to each other for a while, but things move pretty quickly
Right.
after
Okay.
that.
The names Neo and Brex. Now, Brex is short for Brexia, and Neo is for Neruzzi. I guess if you were to say it in Italian. So, I mean, those names. I mean, they're fantastic, fantastical names. Is there an origin story behind those names?
There are origin stories for almost all of the names, but oddly enough, not Neo and Brex. I
Oh,
wanted their names to be simple and short to remember because it is sort of my debut fantasy romance.
yes.
And so I like, for example, the realm that they live in. So the kingdom as opposed to realm, I call it realms.
Right.
The realm that they live in is called Tutavol, which has an origin in my like real world. It's a meaningful place to me that I've just kind of changed the spelling of a little bit. But Neo and Brex, I thought, I had written the reader magnet, so sort of the prequel to this book, and I had some wonky names, like Neo's brother is Rain, Ranieri, so his name is Rain.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted them to be simple to remember, also kind of on that fantastical sort of feel. But yeah, also something that would be easy because I have some crazy names for like the equivalent of like hell and heaven and like the spiritual planes.
Okay.
And every single time I type those out, I'm like, why did I do this? Keeping their names kind of simple was the goal, but more so than the actual origin of them.
Are you able to share a few of the magical creatures that readers can expect to encounter?
I had the benefit when I wrote this one of having already written 2 others, and I had a plan for. So technically, this was never intended to be the first book, and now it is. So I knew I wanted there to be sort of a magic system that would feel familiar to people who know video games or Dungeons and Dragons, that kind of like very comfortable lore. Like I'm not going to reinvent the magic. But I definitely wanted to incorporate sort of my own spin, especially on the monsters and the creatures. So I made up monsters. So all the scary things that come in are completely my invention. I think I can spoil it because I don't think it is really a spoiler, but like on their wedding night, which comes real early in the book, like that's just one of the tropes, of course, is marriage of
Mm-hmm.
convenience. But I was really trying to figure out where to put these different pieces and how to not make the creatures take over the romance part.
Right.
So I decided on Neo and Brex's wedding night that they would take a trip. Neo would be like, okay, you want to be part of this family business. I'm going to put you to work. So they go to a goblin lair or a goblin sanctum on their wedding night. And so that's when I was like, yes, I'm going to have so much fun. All the video games I've played where you see all the different amazing goblins and different like things that they can do.
Yeah.
My version's not quite so inspiring because it's kind of a tough scene when they get there and all the stuff that happens, but it's still, I was so excited to be able to write goblins.
Do you think goblins would make for a good monster romance?
I have thought about that, Liz. I have totally thought about that.
Okay.
I absolutely think they could because they're very clever, they're very crafty, they can manipulate magic most of the time. So
Right.
there could be monster romance in the future.
Yeah. What do you think about a cyclops? I've been thinking about a cyclops romance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you have any cyclopses that will appear in any of the books in the series?
Not per se, but I do have trolls, and so there are trolls that are,
Trolls.
out there
Okay.
to be fought.
So just to go over all the tropes: marriage of convenience, enemies to lovers,
Wedding night, goblin visit.
Hey, listen, I think there could be some kind of a honeymoon horror trope. On their wedding night, they go visit monsters.
Something to do.
Are there any others?
I think other than the slow burn is found family, because found family is pretty much in all the books, which I hope readers enjoy, because if you like even just the supporting characters, you will see them in almost all the other books in some way pop back up.
Right.
So Found family just seems to be like, for me, a fave that I come back to. So
How deep did you go down the research rabbit hole to write Dishonor Among Thieves?
pretty deep, but not like in a shameful way. Like I didn't actually
Okay.
lose because you know how sometimes people are like, I researched this book for 6 months and then so I didn't give myself that time, but I spent I actually tracked my time at some point so I wouldn't fall down that rabbit hole
Oh, okay.
because honestly the things you realize you don't know when you sit down to write something that sort of takes place like in a quasi historical period, like the medieval era, late medieval
Right.
age sort of. Oh my gosh, like I like even the truth about whether or not people drank water in the late Middle Ages. It's like in Europe, let's just say. I
Right.
mean, they did, but I tried to multitask though, so I like listened to podcasts and read or listened to audiobooks while I was like cooking, cleaning and stuff. So not entirely lost in the rabbit hole when I should have been writing words.
Was there anything that you learned that surprised you?
What really mostly surprised me was sort of like how truly civilized a lot of parts of the like let's call it late medieval period are like, you know, in terms of even just hygiene and things like that, like maybe we don't talk about it quite as much, but their advanced understanding of science and hygiene, even if it isn't, we're talking about things like leeches as opposed to using the term vitality, which was what is vitality? I mean, they called it something.
Yeah.
So the medical stuff was really interesting to me. And even how, if it's a little bit archaic or antiquated, it wasn't
Right.
completely wrong, which was really fun because then I was able to write like healers and other characters that, like,
Right.
could know things that truly they could know. In theory and history, they did know.
Right. I do recall that the last time we chatted, there was mention of unicorns because I've always said that I wanted to read some kind of unicorn shapeshifter thing. Did you find any evidence? Because I believe that unicorns were mostly celebrated, during the medieval era. You found them on tapestries and paintings and stuff.
Yeah,
Are they real? Did
they
you find
are.
evidence that they're real? You did.
Let's just put it out there now. We can answer the question definitively. Yes.
Will a unicorn appear at some point in the series?
I hope so. They're a bit elusive, but we're gonna see if we can find just the right character who can tame them. Maybe the goblins. Liz, did you the goblins ride unicorns?
Oh, can the goblin have one name, Donatelli? Donatelli,
Absolutely.
the Italian goblins. Only Italian goblins can tame unicorns.
You have just developed the next book series. Thank you, Liz.
Yes.
Done.
In my opinion, fantasy romance is a monster, pun intended, of a genre. Is there a rule that you followed or a particular skill that you used to balance the fantasy with the romance with the fantasy?
That is such a good question. I honestly was very much aware because I also do like to read fantasy that it's kind of a lot of fantasy readers just don't read romance, even if fantasy stories have sort of a subplot or romantic aspect, which I think is partly why I was beating back the heat level a tiny bit because I'm still figuring that out as a writer, like where I kind of want my characters to be and how I want it to fit. And I don't know, like people may say, oh, there's no heat, this is not enough. And I'll adjust because I can definitely do more. I just was figuring it out for this story. But I think that's how I figured it out is I was realizing that if I went too many pages without that connection on the page, I very intentionally wrote Dishonor in one POV. So it's only Brex's, the female's point of view, because I just wanted to make sure that every couple of pages, while all of this action and adventure is happening, that we're still kind of focused on the romance side of it. So that probably was the biggest challenge. Like once you develop your plot and you know the characters you want to write about, balancing it page in, page out, and not going too long where I'm just getting the plot out. And so then you realize like, oh, but they haven't even looked at each other in like a whole chapter. We probably want to move that around a little bit. So it's a good question. I think it is the struggle. Like that's one of the harder parts.
I've noticed that fantasy romance is a mega popular genre published by indie authors. I'm seeing a lot of good work coming out from indie authors. You yourself, you are self-published. Have you any
Mhm.
thoughts on why fantasy romance authors, particularly those who write, monster romance, are self-publishing?
It's my opinion, of course, because I this will be my first toe in that,
Mhm.
pond. But my impression, honestly, is that there's so much more control that would go to the self-published authors. So, like me just having the freedom to fully design the cover, the way I want it to look, the colors, the vibe, everything about it. Also, the timing. Self-published authors just are able to do things, and to also quickly adjust. So I've had some early reviews come in on Dishonor, and one of the pieces of feedback was you could write more books just about Neo and Brex and everything that happens to them. And so, like that kind of thing, I love because not that you wouldn't necessarily get that feedback with a traditional publisher, but would a traditional publisher be as interested in sort of another book with the same characters just because they were a fan favorite? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
for me, it's the control. It's also the closeness, like with the, my beta readers and things are people who love fantasy romance. So they're very helpful and critical. And I feel it's a great way to go. Not that anyone would ever say traditional publishing is dead. It's still wonderful and huge and important, but
Right.
you get so much, plus so much satisfaction, like just knowing that like I'm really the team and the company and I'm doing it all. It's not alone, but I'm driving
Right.
the bus, so to speak.
So there's going to be 8 books total in the series, and then you'll have like spin-off series.
I'm actually going to do two of the series at the same time because they're all in the
Oh,
same
wow.
universe, but they sort of take different realms. Where like so where
Mhm.
Neo and Brex are in Tutable, the
Mhm.
October and November releases take place in Tutable, but then the January one is in another realm where
Oh,
there's a very
wow.
different awareness of magic and vampires and all that. And so that's it just kind of gives you a sort of different lens. And I hint at it in every book where it's like, not every place is like this. There are other
Yeah.
places we can go and live differently. And so it's also part of hopefully just like the plan of being an indie author is if people really love one place and not so much another, then I kind of know, okay, well, maybe more books like this or more books in a totally different part of the universe. We'll figure it
Right.
out as we go.
So it's going to be 8 full length. Okay.
And I probably will just wait and see if people want, like, if people want, for example, more bonus content that really wouldn't make a book, deleted scenes or spicier scenes or something.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I can always do more. But right now, I'm just focused on 12 months, 8 books, and we'll see how they do. I mean, hopefully people will actually like them. And so I'll have that problem next year to deal with.
Wow. How do you stay motivated? How do you not suffer from debilitating imposter syndrome or any of the other boogeymen out there that authors encounter?
Well, I don't think I'm like spilling any tea to say like I mean, Liz, you and I have known each other a while.
Mhm.
In my like day job life, I'm a book editor and a writing instructor. So
Yeah.
for at least up to this point, like let's say 12 years, I've been doing that pre-publishing my own work kind of.
Mhm.
So being able to do it now, like every day that I'm working with my other clients and
Yeah.
students and stuff, it's amazing. But it also is like, yay, I want to get to my own projects as well. So I think it
Yeah.
does keep me motivated because if I don't do it, like I've got deadlines and class stuff happening that
Mhm.
I can't write for a week.
Yeah.
I really feel like I'm missing out on my own. But it took like I think people who start out and get really frustrated, it's like it took me 12 years of trial and error before I ever really even thought I could do this. So
Right.
now at this point, it's almost like, I've been shaking the can for so long that once you open it, just it all comes out. For me, I just have to trust that it's okay to write a bad page. I'll let it rest and edit it later. And my betas are very, very opinionated. They don't hold back. They care about me, but not that much. They'll tell me if it's bad. So
The first one is called King Midas's Touch.
okay, so this is going to be about a chef who thinks he is the king of his chain of restaurants, and he hasn't told anyone that he has magic and he doesn't actually know how to cook. He just makes the food come out perfectly. And then, of course, it would have to be a romance because there's a rival chef who comes and takes him down.
Is it a little rom-commy? would you say?
Definitely rom.
Okay.
Yes, definitely rom-com.
Okay. Serial dating, but it's CEREAL, as in the food.
Oh,
Serial dating.
all right. So you've killed me here, Liz, because my thesis in grad school, which was creative, was a novel. It was called Serial Dreams, spelled like the cereal.
Get out.
I kid you not, it was a play on words because this character kept having a recurring nightmare. And so it was Serial Dreams. And it tied in with serial. It was,
So
we're
this
getting
could be
totally off
this
track.
book could be part of that world, part of that series.
It definitely could be. Although you're really touching me though, because breakfast cereal is not really sexy. Okay, now I've got it. So
Okay.
let's say we've got a child star who was in commercials as a kid and claim to fame was this one particular goofy cereal commercial. And it can never, let's call him a he can never shed that like sort of thing. All grown up and he is no longer, he hates cereal now, of course.
But then he falls in love with the heiress to the Kellogg's fortune.
Yes, exactly.
I hate myself for loving you. Also a great Joan Jett song.
This definitely evokes enemies to lovers vibes, but I also think like I really love the siblings best friend trope so much. So I think it has to be like, let's go with the little sister, main character is the little sister of someone, and she falls in love with the older, let's say, brother of her sibling, whoever that is, could be a brother, sister, who cares. And so I hate myself for loving you. There's got to be something really juicy. So let's give them like something a little bit out there. He was the homecoming king and she was the homecoming queen.
Mhm.
And they had some like huge blow up on the field because he really wanted his high school girlfriend to win homecoming queen instead of the little sister of the best friend or whatever. I'm really going way too deep, Liz. Way too
That was their past, and then they reconnect the romances as when they're adults. Okay.
exactly. And I think we have to give them, let's put them back. I love high school like reunions. So let's make them both high school teachers now. So now they're back at the same school.
Oh, okay. I like that twist. Love you to Neptune and back.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so let's do a space opera. Of course, one of my really good friends is writing a space opera series right now. So I'm definitely thinking galaxy type stuff and aliens. I love you to Neptune and back. How about let's just go with it. Let's go monster, but let's do alien romance. So
So now, is it an interspecies romance? So it's an alien and a human, or are we talking about two? Okay.
let's do that. Let's really have fun with it. So the Neptunian character, whoever that is, we'll make him kind of crazy. We'll do whatever, tentacles, tails, all the good stuff that you want your monsters to
Okay.
have.
So does this mean this is going to be super steamy, erotic? What are your thoughts on the steam?
I think so. I think it has to be because we've got love in the title, so definitely we know there's that bond, but I think we need to bring the heat.
Okay. The last one, lip service.
That's such a good title, Liz. People are
Thanks.
gonna be using those, and I say go and have fun with them. These are great ones. Okay, you know what? I have to do. I have to like pay honor to like people who are YouTubers and Instagrammers and influencers. Like I think there's a makeup influencer whose romance is going to be called lip service. Got to be, because those people are so freaking talented. I'm going to go with makeup influencer. Let's make the makeup influencer the guy. How about that? Because
Oh,
there are
I
a lot.
like.
Because there are a lot of guys wearing makeup now. Even I think like Joe Jonas admitted that he like does cosmetic stuff. So okay, so
Yeah.
let's male makeup influencer with let's keep it simple, a rival makeup influencer. So they're bidding for a super big contract
Okay.
and an opportunity to like develop their own lipstick.
Okay. So little rivals to lovers. Uh-huh. Wow, you did good. I wasn't even sure if we'd get through five.
I'm the worst title person ever. I didn't come up with Dishonor Among Thieves. My marketing guy did because I knew I wanted it to not sound too forgettable, like where I
Yeah.
wouldn't remember it. I am the worst at remembering anyone's titles. Liz, you just use all your good titles, and I expect to see your makeup influencer romance hitting the shelves.
Yes.
I'll interview you next year.
I've inspired myself. Callie Chase, it has been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for taking time to be here with me on Rita Seeks Romance.
Thank you, Liz. I love your show and I appreciate you talking to me as well. Thanks so much.